PSR com... 170 e são 20 países? São 20 países. A gente vai mostrar um slide agora. Eu até queria fazer aquela pergunta pro Rob em algum momento do negócio, mas acho que o Luiz vai fazer de AI com o negócio. Mais tranquilo. Não, repara. Isso. Na hora do... So good morning, everybody. The first important information is that we're going to have a session today that is likely to have it will involve two languages. The first part will be in English. The second part is likely to be in Spanish. So feel free to grab the audio translator equipment to use in the first or the second part. There is sufficient equipment for the ones that need. And important remark is every time you leave the room, please put back the equipment, and when you come back, you get it, okay? So for the sake of time, I would like to start with just an overview of the event. But first of all, we thank myself that are here in the stage together with Mario, PSR founder and Chief Innovation Officer. We would like to welcome to the event. Actually, we started yesterday, but there are some people arriving. Some people arrived today, so it's the first day. And this is the first day of the main event. Okay, so an overview of the event that we have in numbers. We have more than 100 participants, attendees, plus the team from PSR from around 19 countries, 70 PSR people here, which is a pleasure that we made it, and the event has been in Rio, allowed us to bring the whole analytics team here to interact with you guys. 50 companies from very broad activities in the energy sector. And the interesting thing is that we have 72 newcomers, first time in our users meeting. Here's a brief statistics about the use of our tools. I'm not mentioning SDP, because barely all of you use SDP, but the additional tools that we have. And I'm in front of it is the experience from the audience with our tools. So you do have some very let's say vintage users here, more than 20 years using our tools, and some people new to them, like with less than 2 years. Okay, and the structure of the event is you'll be able to assess the detailed schedule in the website. But just to have an idea of the structure is that, well, today we have a different session, which is our opening roundtable. With myself, Mario, Luiz Barroso, and special guests. But the other days, in the morning, you're going to have technical sessions about different interesting topics, followed by coffee breaks, and we would try to bring some exhibitions during the coffee breaks to make it funnier, and also be able to give you more information in this short time of the whole event. And then followed by technical sessions in the day before the end of the event. We'll go over a roadmap of development of our tools. Then we have the lunch break. We get back today and tomorrow with technical sessions, tomorrow with case studies presentations. Then again, coffee break with some additional exhibitions, followed by mini courses. The idea is that nobody leave here just with a broad overview of topics, but also have the chance to put the hands on the tools, guided by our team. And here on Wednesday, we're going to have the boat trip, which will be very fun. Opportunity to see the landscape and also to talk and meet new people, do networking. Okay. And regarding the mini courses and the hands-on session, by the way, I forgot to mention, today we have this happy hour at the end of the day here in the hotel, somewhere outside. And regarding the mini courses, this is the website to download the material. Not all the material is already there, so we'll be, as they become ready, prepared, we will make it available, okay? We recommend, if you can, download the mini course sessions material in advance. This will help follow all the activities without any interruptions, okay? So that's it. And we shall now move to the round table. Mario. Pause for reflection. Just waiting to change to the Zoom link. Look. By the way, this starting session today will be broadcasted at our PSR's YouTube channel, so feel free to share with your colleagues, friends, family. Okay. Hello. So starting the session today, I would like to kick off. It's a great pleasure to introduce our guest speaker, Mr. Rob West, which is in the TV here in the screen. Well, Rob is the founder and CEO of Thunderset Energy, a research consultancy that he created in 2019, I think, right, Rob? And the idea was to explore economic opportunities in the energy transition. What makes Rob's work very interesting and what first caught our attention is his rigorous data-driven approach and his unique habit of digging very deep into patent data, kind of unusual, to spot early signals of where energy technologies are heading. So it's actually was actually Mario who first came across Thunderset Energy, I think maybe 2020. Mario was Googling for something and stumbled across Thunderset Energy, started following the site, reading all the analysis, and then later on we became subscribers to this very interesting material that the Robs prepare. And by the way, I think it's mostly or all of them prepared by Rob itself, which is at the same time being the CEO of the company, is also the analyst of it, right? So actually the insights Rob brings have sparked many interesting discussions at PSR. It became part of our routine of analysis and a constant source of inspiration. So we're very happy to have Rob here with you at this PSR User Meeting 2025 to share with you his thoughts, and his perspective is a perfect complement to the technical discussions we're having the whole week. So helping us think more broadly about topics like grid bottlenecks, electrification, decarbonization, AI, geopolitical dynamics that will be shaping future of energy. So please join me, Rob West. An applause, please. Yes.
Look, we're not on track for that. We need to be honest about it. And instead, the best outcomes we can deliver for people might involve using more energy, making things that have historically been dumb, making them smarter. And we will have an energy transition. Emissions will peak, but we will still probably be in a world that has warming. And getting good functioning energy systems will help us deal with the inevitable warming that is coming, rather than pretending that it's not coming. So my key focus that I want to talk about today is, what is the energy transition? What opportunities is it really going to create for us? How can we make things more resilient? How can we make things smarter? And I hope by the time I've finished with that, you'll be as excited as I am about some of these opportunities. So we are having classic energy transition. And what I mean by that is that what's going to happen in the future of the world is similar to energy transitions we've had in the past. The first big energy transition was the energy transition of coal. We still burn twice as much wood as coal in the 19th century, but the coal was new, it layered in on top, and it unlocked amazing new technologies like steamboats and mechanization and railways. Then we had the 20th century with the energy transition of oil. We still burned more coal than oil in the 20th century, but the oil was new, it layered in on top, and it unlocked amazing new things like planes and plastics and cars. And we're here in 2025. Solar is now the bottom of the cost curve everywhere for delivering at least partial electricity, when the sun happens to be shining. It's going to double again in efficiency from here. It's going to halve again in cost from here. And it's also going to layer in on top and unlock a lot of new demand in things like smart energy systems and battery charged stuff and AI and desalination and infrastructure. And some of the things we're going to do with this, it's just going to be amazing and just, really couldn't be more exciting as opportunities. But this energy system that I'm showing out to 2050, it's an energy system where we still have pragmatic use of hydrocarbons. Coal probably peaks because of cost, Chinese coal costs will probably be higher than imported LNG by about 2030. And oil declines to about 85 million barrels a day by 2050. But in the electricity sector, solar, gas, some wind, some nuclear, these are all going to grow. And actually, if you break down the entire global energy system, and here it is in primary energy terms, um, today, if you look at useful energy, about 37% is electricity. And by 2050, on this map, about 70% will be electricity. So we are electrifying. And so look, this is a temperate view of the world. I'm not an extremist. There are some people out there who want to say there's going to be one energy source to rule them all, and that will scale up and it will displace everything else. And I don't think that's likely because I spend my life looking at energy technologies, and two things really scare me. Some of these technologies are expensive, and they will always be expensive. And that's what I'm showing on this chart. Today the world is 50 billion tons a year of CO2. If we did nothing by 2050, it would be 80 billion tons a year of CO2. And I spent the last 6 years building a roadmap to get the world to net zero, where the average CO2 abatement cost is about $40 a ton. And all along, I've been saying the stuff that costs in the hundreds of dollars a ton, it's really going to remain niche. We're not going to need huge amounts of that. And actually, the biggest thing that scares me in the last 5 years is even my stuff that costs $40 a ton, people don't want to pay for. And so, being pragmatic, looking at every single value chain that accounts for CO2, there's about 40 of them, and look at what I actually think will happen, looking through all those decarbonization technologies, we will probably be in a world that still has about 30 billion tons of CO2 by 2050. And even getting people to pay a little bit more for something that costs $20 a ton of CO2 abated, $40 a ton, has been a huge challenge. And I think some policymakers have pushed that too hard. And as a result, we haven't gotten rid of the CO2, we've gotten rid of the policymakers. And that's something we have to treat very seriously when making policies going forwards, is that if people don't want it, they might not vote for it. And if you propose it and they don't want it, you might be out. So we need to make things better for people when we're building an energy system. The second reason I said I sort of get a bit nervous about, it's all going to be one thing, is a lot of these technologies, there's a joke that a technology is just something that doesn't work yet. I track technologies, I look at them, I screen them, I follow them, and as introduced, I read patents quite a lot. 20% of all the companies developing a new technology go under every year. They fail every year. It takes 15 years to go from the lab to the real world. And so if you do the maths, 0.8 to the power of 15, there's maybe a 4% chance that something that looks interesting in the lab is actually going to make it and actually going to change the world's energy system. And that's something I've built up a lot of scars about, advising people, where to invest. Generally, we have all been too positive on new technologies, but there are some new technologies that deserve positivity. And I'm going to talk about a couple of them. Solar. I don't have a great slide on this. I write a new research note about a new solar technology basically every year. Something that comes through and it's like, wow, this is a completely new way of doing solar. I mean, most recently it was a research note about tandem perovskite solar. I'm not going to bore you guys too much today with the equations of the Shockley quasar limit, but I'm just going to give you some facts. 20 years ago, solar modules were 5% efficient. 10 years ago, they were 15% efficient. Today, they are 25% efficient. They will get to 50% efficient. You are welcome to bet against that, but it's like betting against Moore's law. That fact that the computing performance of a chip has doubled every 18 months for 50 years. It's just semiconductors. And once you start layering semiconductors on semiconductors with different band gaps and different ways of funneling those electrons that get promoted out of the cells, you will get the 50%. And actually, if you want the physics of how you do that, then it's all here on the website. Every time, this one, Shockley Guizar, every time the efficiency of solar doubles, the cost halves. And so this is the most important chart I'm going to show you today. Oh, is it? Okay, so this is an important chart. This is looking at all new sources of electricity and what they cost. If you have an existing coal plant, it's quite cheap because you've already built it. If you're building gas in the United States and you've got $3 an MCF gas, it's pretty cheap because the gas is really cheap. But then the next one is solar. And the shaded bars here, these electricity sources, they don't generate around the clock. And I think some people have maybe been too bullish on some new energy sources because, you can't really compare something that generates when you need it with something that generates whenever it happens to generate. But this is the chart that is actually important that I'm going to bore you with. It's the most complicated chart I will present. So once you've been through this one, then it's all easy from here. It's all easy. So everybody kind of gets the dashed blue line. This is the cost of building a new gas turbine. And let's say you run it 75% of the time. And the cost of electricity from that system is just a straight line function of the gas price. So if you're in a place where you're importing gas at maybe $7 an MCF, then your cost of electricity is 7 cents a kilowatt hour. Fine, easy. I think everybody gets that. What if I build a slightly different system for round-the-clock electricity? And I build a 100 megawatt gas turbine, but I also build 100 megawatts of solar. And when the solar is generating, I get my energy from the solar. And when it's not, I fire up the gas turbine. Well, that's what I'm plotting in the other lines on this chart, the colored lines. And, you can see that sometimes that's cheaper than gas alone. Sometimes it's more expensive. It's obviously more expensive to build because you've got to build two things. You've got to build the same gas turbine you built before, and you've got to build the solar. So on the other hand, you get lower operating costs because when the sun is shining, you don't have to buy any gas to burn it. So if you're in a place like Europe, where gas price is coming in at $9 an MCF, and we are building solar at $700 a kilowatt, it's cheaper to do solar plus gas than standalone gas. If you're in Latin America and you've got maybe $6 to $7 an MCF gas, and again, you've got $600 to $7 a kilowatt solar, it's cheaper to do solar and gas than standalone gas. If you're in the United States, then you've got $3 an MCF gas and you've got $1,000 a kilowatt solar because of tariffs, and it's cheaper to do standalone gas. And so that's why different regions are having quite different pathways in what they're going behind. But generally, solar deserves to be building into this energy system. And we will get to a point where, when the sun is shining, the energy coming out of solar projects is 1 to 2 cents a kilowatt hour. It's probably, on this chart, it's probably about 5 cents a kilowatt hour as a global average today. But it will get to 1 to 2. And that will open up the ability of doing some amazing things with solar. But we have to be able to move it, as with all renewables. And the challenge of moving that volatile generation source is making our grids more volatile. And so I want to talk about what we're going to do with all this excess solar. I think one of my favorite notes I've ever written is this one, which is called Kardashev Scale Civilization. There was this crazy scientist called Nikolai Kardashev who proposed that if you discovered, a very advanced civilization somewhere in the universe, you could find a civilization that might be using 100% of the incoming energy arriving on its planet from its closest star. And if the human civilization was using all of the energy reaching planet Earth from our closest star, we would use 10,000 times more energy than we use today. So, just the ability to build the solar, unlock the access to that solar and use it, we could really consume 10,000 times more energy. And the question is, if it gets that cheap, what could you do with it? There's all kinds of crazy, interesting things that you should be thinking about for the future. I mean, one of my favorite examples is desalination. Desalination is a great kind of load to pair with solar because it just involves compressing water across a membrane and taking out the salt. And you can scale it up when the sun is shining, and you can not run it when the sun is not shining. And the end cost of doing that, you could desalinate enough water economically to green 1 billion acres of desert around the world. And then the value of the land that you could now use for agriculture or use for human purposes, that uplift in value would be about 2x the cost of building the desalination equipment, building the water pipelines, building the solar that does this thing. And so it's research like that that makes me think, actually, when you start thinking about climate change, having more energy, not less, is going to help us solve some of these problems. And the biggest illustration that has gripped everybody, recently is AI. If you go through 40,000 AI patents, which is some research we did recently, God, there's millions of industrial problems where you have stuff that is dumb and you can make it smart and you can save time and make money. One of the most clear examples of this was given by Larry Ellison, who gives this example of you go to the doctor and the doctor gives you a blood test and says, I've got very bad news, you have cancer. But with AI, you could find that exact cancer and the exact antigen sequence that defines that cancer, and you could create a vaccine within about 3 days, and you give the person that vaccine and boom, they're cured. It's just finding that antigen and finding the vaccine and developing the vaccine and giving them the vaccine. And I think anybody who's kind of known somebody that has suffered from that cruel disease would say, I don't care how much energy that uses. I don't care how much CO2 that emits. We need that. And a lot of other things in our energy system, from autonomous vehicles to being able to, improve our value chains, unlock new materials. A lot of the time, people are going to look at that and they're going to say, I want that. And it's a very different thing from this world that I talked about here. If we take, green steel, yeah, I can make steel that has got no CO2 embedded in it, but it's twice as expensive. And frankly, people say, well, I don't really want that. And that's made it very hard to do decarbonization. But if you invent products that people want that tend to use a lot of electricity, people are going to say, oh, I want that because it saves me time, makes me money, makes things cheaper, unlocks new capabilities for human civilization. And I want to illustrate this in a bit more detail by talking about the grid, because our grids are just painfully dumb. And this will be kind of my final point about a big change in this energy transition that involves higher demand for electricity, but also smarter electricity and the new technologies being unlocked that are real. And so I want to show you this top chart here. This is a feeder loop, a 60 megawatt feeder loop. It's actual data from a place in the UK. And it's a wonderful smooth curve that happens to be almost perfectly logarithmic. And the reason we need 60 megawatts of capacity in this feeder loop is that for 1 hour per year, in the UK, it's during a cold snap, everybody's running electric heating, everybody's running loads. And for 1 hour per year, you need 60 megawatts. And the way we've done grid planning in the past has been to say, well, at some point throughout the year, there's going to be a year that has the peak demand, and we don't know what it's going to be, and we can't control it, and we can't send pricing signals. So we better build a 60 megawatt grid for that 1 hour. But most of the time, demand will be like 25 megawatts. So you actually end up overbuilding the grid by 2.5 times, just because you build it to meet that peak hour. And this is where things start getting really interesting if our energy system becomes smarter. I'm going to take you to a case study of a random house in Massachusetts. Here it is. And this is data from an open source study where they instrumented all the different loads throughout the house. It's a wonderful amount of data. It's the sort of thing that, Thunderset Energy, PSR, this is what we live for as nerdy grid modelers. And what's interesting about this house, this is that the peak demand in this house in the entire day entire year, sorry, it's about 10 kilowatts. And it's a day where at this house, it's just got a crazy inefficient dryer. It's literally a tumble dryer in this house. And what you see here is a day where they do like 7 loads of laundry. And if you had, it's this day with peak demand. Well, here's things you could do if you had a smarter energy system. You could send a time of use pricing signal to this user and say, can you do your laundry day tomorrow? Or if you want to do it today, we're really going to charge you because we had to go and build twice the size of the grid that we actually needed just because you're going to be running your laundry machine at, the time of peak grid demand. And they might say, yeah, sure, I actually quite happily hang my laundry out to dry on a clothesline that day, or I'll do it tomorrow, or whatever. The second thing you can do with this is if you did have a shortage of power in the grid, you wouldn't have to have a rolling blackout like happened in Spain. You could find non-essential loads as the grid operator. And you could say, okay, it'll be much better if the hospital didn't have a power cut. So you know what? We're just going to turn off everybody's tumble dryer. And I think everybody would agree it'd be better for you can't do tumble drying than the hospital loses power. The third thing you can do is you can take this house and you'd be like, you're a house with 3 people. Why do you have a 6 kilowatt tumble dryer? Was this machine purchased in 1978? Should you be getting a new one that uses 85% less electricity? Because we can see the data and we can see this thing is damn inefficient. And so, what I'm trying to illustrate here is we're going to have flexible loads. We're going to have the ability to reduce loads in times of real shortage. And we're going to have the ability to identify inefficient loads so we can go and fix them. And the only thing stopping us from doing this right now is that today our grids are dumb. We don't know whether that load is a life support machine or a hot tub. And so we just assume we'd better meet all of the loads. And when I go through patents, I did one recently, quite interesting, a company called Itron. Itron makes smart meters. It's one of the leading, Itron and Landis+Gyr are the 2 largest in the United States. And this patent screen looks at all the things they're doing with their networks now that they are smarter. They're not smart, but they're not as dumb as they were. And they're sort of somewhere in between. And you look at the same thing, there's a company in the UK called Kraken, which is owned by Octopus. It's the leading smart energy company in the UK. And you go through their patents and what they're doing with the data. Again, we are on a shift from dumb grids where we plan for the absolute peak load to smart grids where we can move loads around, incentivize people to move loads around, and just make it better. And that's going to be through data and AI. And it's going to, I'll leave you with this final point. 3/4 of the cost of your power bill in your home has nothing to do with the cost of generation. It has nothing to do with this cost curve. It's the cost of moving that electricity throughout this giant network. And so I really think AI, there's been a lot of discussion about the energy consumption it will use. It's 2% of global electricity today for the internet. It will end up being maybe 6% of electricity. But I think it's going to save more energy than it uses directly because I can see it. When I go through patents, when I go through the things people are starting to do with this smarter way of building industrial stuff. And so I'm very excited about what's coming in our energy system. We might not get to net zero. I think we're on course to get to something better that involves more energy for people, better energy for people, and unlocking human possibilities in a really smart way that actually fits the pattern of what's happened with energy transitions in the past. So thank you very much for letting me present some of that. I always struggle to distill 6 years of work into start diving a bit further into some of this stuff. And yeah, thank you again.
Thanks. So following the Raul's very interesting presentation, very smart view on some key points that we have been discussing about energy transition and the future of this development of energy transition. So I'd like now to continue with some discussions here with our team of PSR. Rob, can you hear me well? Yes?
Yeah, I can. Yeah, thank you.
Great. So I would like to start with our colleague Luiz Barroso, PSR's CEO. Luiz, are you there? Luiz could not make it here to be present in Búzios. He had another trip, but he reserved his time, precious time, to be here and join the event. So I will be glad to hear Luiz's comments and questions to Rob. Thanks, Luiz.
Okay, can you all hear me well?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. So hello everyone and good morning. And I think it's great to have this meeting happening in the beautiful city of Búzios in Rio. So while Rob is in Estonia, I am in France, and we have a Ricardo in Mexico. You guys are all having fun at the beach, which is how things are meant to be, in Rio. So please have the best of this week and take the most of the team. So Raphael, congrats for this meeting. Mario, it's great to see you. And to Rob and to Ricardo, thank you very much for being with us. And Rob, it's always very insightful to hear you and also to read your pieces. And every time I receive the thunder arriving in my inbox, it's a bless because you always bring things that are really, really outside the box. And I know, Rob, that you are a big rock fan. You know that I'm a big Iron Maiden fan. And I will just name you from now onwards as the God of Thunder, okay? Because the God of Thunder is the name of a song by those guys from the 70s, this band called Kiss. They had this makeup, you know this, and they have Gene Simmons with the big tongue and so on. So he was known as the God of Thunder. So you will be the
Well,
God
you've given me an idea for an outfit the next time I do a presentation with you guys.
You bet, you bet. Okay, but now let's carry on to talk about some serious stuff. So I think that Mario, myself, and all the audience, we do have a lot of more detailed questions for you if we have the time. But I will start, I think, with the question that would be of a great interest for the audience that we have. It's because you have presented us a new system. And it's definitely a new system, energy-wise or power-wise. And most of the audience that of the people that we have in the audience today, they are power system planners, operators, and people that are really with their boots on the ground in ensuring grid reliability in the least cost way. And if you had to advise like these people that are in the room today of their top, I don't know, top 2 or 3 or 4 priorities in terms of what power system planners and operators should do in order to ensure reliability in a cost-effective way, considering this system that we are heading to, according to your brilliant explanations, what would them be?
Be more demanding. Now is the time. We get the importance of grids. I think I didn't mention this enough in my presentation, but around the investment world, people get that the grid is the biggest bottleneck for everything we want to do, whether it's in energy transition, whether it's in scaling AI. And a lot of the challenges we've had around dumb grids, we don't have to settle for anymore. I had a client that came to me and they were looking at doing an investment. And as part of that investment, they needed to know what percentage of the US electricity network was below like 40 amps. And they asked all the different network, what percent is below 40? Like it never goes below 40 amps. And nobody knew. And they hired a big consulting firm and nobody knew. And it turns out nobody has that data. And there's a lot of stuff like this in our grids. I think everybody in the grid planning space knows this. We just don't have the data. And so we're trying to build this, complicated system and make it better. But we're kind of operating without data in a lot of places. And so I think now is the time to say, what is the information we don't have that we need? And I think start instrumenting it and start getting access to that data so that we can make better decisions.
Thank you. Data, that's a good one.
Hi, Rob.
I think the second one is, batteries. Batteries are a world-changing technology, but how do we use batteries? And I've seen lots of different models. I love the example. I had this in my slides. I didn't present it. Maybe I could show one more slide. So there was a model, I don't know, 5 years ago that people got excited about, which was, oh, you know what you're going to do with batteries? You're going to store up the renewables like during the day, and you're going to re-release it at night, and boom, that's the point of batteries, and we're done. But actually, that's way too simple. There's dozens of other battery uses. In this slide that I've got on my screen, I don't know if you guys can see it, but I'm showing the load of a house in the UK, similar kind of house by house disaggregation. And this house, it has a peak load of 10 kilowatts once, 1 hour, or actually 5 minutes throughout the year. And at that exact 5 minutes, you can guess what's happening. The washing machine's on, the dishwasher's on, somebody's hoovering, and then somebody goes into the kitchen and turns on the kettle. And that's why that house needs a 10 kilowatt grid connection. But most of the time, the median in that house is drawing 630 watts. And what's interesting about that is if you look at that house and that house had just a 10 kilowatt hour battery, it would be absolutely fine with a 2 kilowatt grid connection. So all this challenge we have of having to upgrade our distribution network, which is a big costly bit, actually we could avoid having to do that with battery deployments near the consumer. And that feeds into the smarter energy theme. There's a whole other one about integrating solar. Amazing fact, you can get 90% of a 300 megawatt solar installation out through a 100 megawatt grid connection if you pair the solar with the battery. And so, there's all these different ways of using batteries, upstream of the grid, downstream of the grid, different nodes. And again, this is why I think having data, you can know where you need to put the batteries in ways that you couldn't know before. So that's my biggest answer for you, Luis. That's my biggest answer.
Thanks, Rob. Thanks, Luis. So Mario?
Yes. Hi, Rob. Can you hear me?
Yeah, of course. Hi.
Okay. I'm going to change topic, and I would like to refer to something that, in my opinion, is very important that you mentioned about the mitigation efforts is being unrealistic, okay? And let me quote some numbers from your presentation, which Pragma, which I liked very much, and you mentioned part of them here, okay? First of all, what we call green premium is the difference between the cost of the green stuff compared to the cost of the regular stuff. For example, sustainable aviation fuel, okay? It's exactly the same, works the same way, but costs 3 times as much. So there is a green premium of twice with respect to the current fuel, which, and you very correctly point this out, is that this green premium does not improve the economy, does not improve the welfare. It's something that you pay in the hope that in the future this is going to be okay. And you made a calculation that the green premium would be $40 per ton of CO2, and with a future of something 8 billion tons in 2050. You crunch some numbers, and there is something, correct me if I'm wrong, something like a $3 trillion per year of a green premium, okay? Yeah. And so $3 trillion per year. So next question is, who is going to pay the $3 trillion? One interesting thing is that you think, well, there's enough money for it. And Rob made a very nice comparison. People pay in philanthropic actions around this amount. So it is not impossible And Harari, the philosopher, the Israeli philosopher, once he made the presentation, that's a piece of cake. You just have to fork $3 trillion. That's 1.5% of a global GDP. But that's a typical thing that's okay, but how exactly are we going to do it? And then Rob has a killer number, which is the US people, if you ask them how much you're going to be willing to pay per month to get rid of all of the emissions, less than $2 per month. So there is an incredible difference between what people think that we should do and what people are willing to do. And I think, Rob, correct me if I'm wrong, I think that's one of the key messages. That is that regardless if people think that's a priority, actually the whole world is not going this way. Is that correct?
Yeah, I'm afraid that is correct. I spent 6 years on this. I would like it if it's correct, but no, I think part of being a good analyst is not to force people to do what you want, is to listen to what other people are saying and then predict. And so my prediction is some Western countries might increasingly look at their decarbonization efforts and get the impression that they're spending a lot of money to try and decarbonize their economies, but elsewhere, global emissions are still going up. And that does raise a question, which is, you know, why are you doing that? And every country, yes, I mean, 1.5% of GDP is a small number, like it's a percentage, but you know, global military spending is 1% of GDP. If the UK could put another 1% of GDP into healthcare, it would love to do that. Actually, 1% of GDP, finding 1% of GDP is a huge thing to find. And I think one of the things we have at the moment is just some people are saying, well, there's other things I might like to do with 1.5% of GDP. So I really applaud people who make philanthropic contributions for what sits well with their moral compass. But I think, you know, my job as an analyst is to predict. And my prediction is that the way society is going is that more people are going to say the dollars spent on green premium are not giving us a good return relative to other things we could be doing with the money.
No, we completely agree with you. Yeah. No, sorry, go ahead.
No, I was done.
No.
That was
okay. No, that's my first point. We completely agree with you, okay? And the reason I'm bringing this is that because, you know, we're going to have COP30 in Brazil in November. And let's say PSR's message is, okay, let's be realistic. Exactly in the same way that you're doing, okay? And in Brazil, we coined the term green bonus. Okay, I should only invest in technologies that give me economic advantage. So one of the messages we're sending to the government and to our clients is, okay, game is over, switch from green premium to green bonus. And there are a lot of things, in case of Brazil and some other Latin American countries, there are a lot of opportunities for green bonus. Now I would like to jump to the second point which you make, which is amazing, okay? And we completely agree with you. I remember in the Pragma presentation, you said if I was dictator for a day, okay, I would say energy, okay? Priority number one, and repeated this. And I would like to share with the audience one number that impresses me a lot. Nigeria has the same population of Brazil, 230 million people. The total installed capacity in Nigeria is 6,000 megawatts. The total installed capacity in Brazil is 180,000 megawatts. Okay? Nigeria has an installed capacity smaller than a mid-sized city in Brazil. So it's obvious that for Nigeria, you have to get energy, 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 energy. I don't care if it's coal, I don't care if it's gas, I don't care. It's just cruel to say that, oh, though these Nigerians have to spend more money to build technologies which are not the cheapest possible technology, because, I understand that's your message is that if you get energy right and if you get energy abundant, okay, you're going to leverage education, you're going to leverage economic growth, and you're going to eventually, for example, possibly with AI, discover ways of, by electrifying the economy, and you're going to discover ways of dealing with emissions. So the priorities should be very clear. So I would just like to complement. So it's not only for richer countries, but I think for very poor countries that are much poorer than, let's say, the countries here in Latin America. But so low-income countries, middle-income countries, high-income countries, if I understand your message, is energy, energy, energy. Is that correct? Not really.
I think it's a good way of putting it. I also think that, you know, there is a quality dimension as well as a quantity dimension. Nobody wants wasteful energy.
No, I understand, efficient energy.
Yeah, so if we can say better energy, yeah, everywhere is going to want better energy. I completely agree with that. Completely agree.
Perfect.
I mean, I've been feeling kind of depressed about all this stuff because, you know, I think everybody has had to recalibrate to this world that we're now in. It's just a different world than it was a year ago. And some of the things that we all thought were really important about a year ago just seem to be less important. And I sometimes speak to people who say, you know, you've gone way too far with this. It's all about energy thesis. But I really do believe that. I really do believe that if you get better energy to people, you will unlock the absolute best human outcomes, including dealing with the cruel problems of energy poverty, the cruel problems of climate change. Actually, if you have the energy, you can deal with a lot of this stuff. So that's kind of the guiding thing of what I want to do with Balance Energy, is help get those opportunities in front of people that will make the world better and make for good investments and good policies. And there's part of that which you made me think of in your comments earlier. I mean, I loved your idea of the green bonus. The challenge with the green bonus, everybody claims they will give you a green bonus. You know, I think, you know, everybody knows of a study that they've seen that's crossed their desk saying, my thing that I'm selling is the cheapest thing. I'm not going to tell you the assumptions that went into my study, but here's my bar chart, and my thing is the cheapest thing. And this is why I really am excited about getting data and numbers in front of people. Because, you know, it's that old thing that everybody's entitled to their own opinion, but they're not entitled to their own facts. And often the facts in energy aren't clear. So for me, it comes down to getting the data in front of people so we can all model this and make sure that people claiming to have green bonuses really do have green bonuses. And I really like that concept.
Okay, no, I completely agree with you. What we do is we have this optimal expansion planning models. And basically, if you come with a new technology, we just include as a candidate in the model, okay? And if it's good, it's going to win. If it's not good, it's not going to win. And what we do, so it's as simple as that. And of course, we do some parametric assumptions on capex and so on. And so it's very pragmatic. We don't care about people coming with a very weird or strange or wonderful technologies, because it's just a question that I want it cheap and efficient and so on. And if Luis, allow me to just a small compliment on that question of energy. And I agree with you that it has to be efficient energy. I agree with you that we have to be realistic. But personally, I think that this recalibration that happened a year ago has had a good side, because you have no idea what's the incredible amount of time we waste with greenwashing. We waste with people pretending that they're... So if there's one very slim silver lining in what happened the past year, is that the masks are off. So you don't have, I said, from our view, it's a kind of a relief that we don't have to pretend that sector A or sector B or sector C of the economy are so worried about climate change, and that they make all these fake promises, and that they have to pretend that they are going to do. So I think from that point of view, life is easier, because let's say, information is clearer, okay? Nobody is going to give us any money, for example, for planting trees or doing stuff. And we have to have enough efficiency in our economy to deal with adaptation, and we have to go with economic growth. And so in a way, it's depressing. On the other way, it's a relief, because it's a lot of time wasted to deal with people just pretending that they care, and they are greenwashing, this kind of thing. So it's just one small comment. Remember, I shared with you a sentence by Gramsci. We are pessimistic because of reason, okay? And we're optimistic because of will. But if you hit your heads in the wall several times, it's a head that breaks, not the wall. So I think that essentially you have to be realistic. So that's now, Chabar?
Yeah,
Thank you very much, Rob.
Thanks, Mario. So, Rob, I have maybe a final question here for you regarding all this. So I can say that you're not very optimistic about reaching net zero by 2025 using, let's say, off-the-shelf ideas and solutions. But there then brings this paradox where you can put more energy to develop more artificial intelligence framework, which will then be able to find new solutions, right? So solutions that have been discussed also maybe reaching artificial general intelligence. So start reasoning, start bringing something completely new, right, to the problem. Different player that nobody is seeing. And not only bringing the tools, but maybe also helping into the discussions, right? Having ideas where people can discuss, test, and go more in a path of truth, of rationalism, rather than things that don't have any practical proof or validation. So does this makes you a little bit more optimistic that something somehow might seem coming out of the blue will be a game changer?
Yeah, I like taking stuff back to first principles. And when you do that, there are game changers that will come through our energy system. There will be materials that are semiconductors that just turn a heat difference straight into a direct current via the thermoelectric effect, or the Seebeck effect, it's sometimes called. And just putting Seebeck effect semiconductors onto hot surfaces, you can tap electricity and pull it out again. If you take direct air capture, today direct air capture is a kind of crazy high-cost technology. It costs $1,000 a ton. It uses 2,500 kilowatt hours a ton. But you will probably find metal organic frameworks where under a voltage and reverse voltage, they absorb CO2 and then directly mineralize it into a brick that can be used as a construction material and powered entirely by solar, and use 90% less energy than today's DAC, and effectively produce carbonate materials at about $100 to $200 a ton. If you go through to things that you're seeing in drones and robotics, I guess my favorite example is the example of aluminium. Historically, aluminium was one of the hardest to smelt metals. It was so rare that Napoleon had his cutlery made of aluminium to show how wealthy he was. And then they came up with the whole Haroop process where you didn't have to smelt aluminium anymore. You could electro-win it in molten cryolite. And suddenly it went from being a 4% efficient process to a 60% efficient process. And now aluminium is so cheap you can wrap your sandwiches in the stuff. So you can have breakthroughs in technology, in the energy system, whether it's new materials, new technologies that hugely increase the efficiency of stuff. And that's the stuff that excites me. If it happens to have a green bonus, I've stolen your phrase now, it's going to be in all the Thunder's energy research. But if it happens to have a green bonus, amazing. That's wonderful. But if I think about things that excite me right now, the primary reason they excite me is that they unlock possibilities that would not have been possible for people before. The second thing that excites me is they're going to be economical. People will want to pay for them. The third thing that excites me is they're going to work. Things that you can see working and see why they're going to work. And, if you get a green bonus, that's a bonus. And I think that's a framework to end on. And I can tell you why I'm excited about robotics or drones or additive manufacturing in the right context and all these wonderful technologies that are coming through as things get smarter. But these are the things that people are going to get behind and make money improving outcomes for people. And that nothing could be more exciting than that for people who study energy systems.
Thanks a lot, Rob. So, Luis, do you have any final remarks or comments?
No, I just would like to thank Rob very much for your participation. And I would really like to encourage, everybody in the room to pay attention to our God of Thunder, because the thunder really hits.
Yeah.
And he really brings a lot of good insights. And his provocation on the combination between solar and CCGTs is very interesting, as well as all his insights on the role of transmission and storage to deal with the curtailment, which is going to be a hot topic during the week. So I will stop here, and once again, Rob, thank you very much for being with us. Raphael and Mario.
Thank you.
Rob, if you have just a few minutes for grabbing a question from the audience, if someone here would like to ask something to Rob. Anyone? Yeah, there's someone here.
Hola, muchísimas gracias por sus palabras y su visión muy esperanzadora del futuro. Yo había leído sobre las placas solares.
Just one sec. I'm not really sure if there is translation for Rob, so if you can make the question in English. Or I don't know how much of Spanish does Rob speak, but.
Yeah, I got like 70% of that. So.
Or we can translate to him.
Yeah, you could try in Spanish. I'm happy to.
Yes.
Bien, en español otra vez, agradecerle mucho su mirada esperanzadora del futuro energético y dos preguntas específicas. ¿Le vas traduciendo?
Un poco más alto.
Otra vez, muchas gracias por su mirada esperanzadora del futuro energético. Luego preguntarle, usted hablaba que en las placas solares ve que alcanzaríamos una eficiencia de hasta 50%. Había leído que tenemos un gran límite con la tecnología actual de hasta un 30%. Me gustaría tener más detalles sobre su visión de cómo conseguiremos ese 50%.
So just going part, so Rob, maybe you got it. Thanks for your participation. And where's the trick? Where's the trick from moving from like 30% efficient on solar panels from today's technology to reach 50%? If this is realistic, what is on it?
Una más.
So Rob just can answer, and then we.
So. There is an article, it's a free article on the Thunder's Energy website that explains that. It's called the Shockley Quasar Limit. And the really short answer is that most of the solar we've made so far it has one semiconductor with one band gap. And that one semiconductor absorbs photons that have energy of a certain wavelength. For any higher energy photons, the rest of the energy is just lost as heat, And so if you put two semiconductors together, one with a higher band gap, you stack them like this. The first level captures the very high energy electrons. The lower energy electrons pass through, they go to the second layer, and then the second layer captures the lower energy electrons, since you don't have so much getting thermalized or lost as heat. And you're already doing that with cells that are on the market today. So the perovskite cells being made in China right now that are getting 27% efficiency, they have a thin perovskite layer on top, and then they have a silicon layer below. But the thing about doing that with 2 layers is what's next. You're going to do it with 3 layers, and then with 4 layers. And in the lab, there are already solar modules that are getting to 50% efficiency, and they'll tend to have 7 different semiconductors stacked one on top of each other. So it's just a way of stacking semiconductors, each with a progressively lower band gap, so that you can absorb all of the electromagnetic spectrum from UV through to IR, and turn almost all of that into electricity. And that's how that's going to happen.
Thanks.
Thank you.
The second one?
Muchas gracias. Segundo, ¿cómo ve la parte de producción de energía eléctrica con plantas nucleares hacia el futuro? Su mirada.
So, what's the future in your view for nuclear power plants?
Nuclear is going to grow. We currently have 3,000 terawatt hours of nuclear in our electricity system. It's about 10% globally. I think it will get to about 7,000 terawatt hours by 2050. I think the big reason for that
While we recover the signal, I'd like to, okay, they're recovering. No, you should check the Thunder Said's site, because, for example, there are a lot of papers which are free. I'll just make advertisement of you, Rob.
Yeah, we
lost the signal.
Connection, and Mario started selling.
Yeah, selling Thunder Said subscriptions.
Giving an important discount, by the way.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well,
no. People. If you sign today, Rob will give you 10% discounts.
Sure. Okay.
So you're talking about the nuclear.
Yeah. I was going to say that I think it will double. I think the thing that causes it to grow is standardization. It's taking a reactor design, probably a Chinese reactor design. Everything is unique, and China's already making nuclear at $3,000 to $4,000 a kilowatt just with a standard design that gets rolled out again and again and again. I've looked at the next generation small modular reactors. I've been through the patents of some of those companies. There are some really cool innovations there, but I think it will be after 2030 that any of those, really even have a chance of getting to commerciality. I've also looked at fusion, which is a wonderful, science fiction concept. But having looked at it, my conclusion is fusion will almost certainly be more expensive than fission, at least into the 2040s. So I think that for the next 10 years, the growth in nuclear will be standardized reactors getting rolled out around the world and keeping existing reactors running.
Thanks, Rob. Maybe just a quick final question, because we're a little bit out of time.
I'm also delighted to field questions by email. You're very welcome to follow up with me. You can get my details from, and I'd be very happy to help.
Yeah, remember that all good actions will be punished. You're going to be flooded with
that's
email.
fine. That's fine.
I'm sure. No, we know, Rob. We have all this exchange information with you. It's always been great.
All right. Thank you very much for the presentation. Just a very quick question. Do you think that it can be dangerous to see green premium as a bad thing? because we know it's not stationary. If you have more investment, bigger scale,
Yeah.
they change. Just as a quick example, like where I come from in Quebec, very recently, owning an EV is cheaper than a ICE vehicle. Heating your house with a heat pump is now cheaper than gas. Do you see it's a dangerous approach?
Yeah, it's a great question. That is why I love doing the patent analysis. You do have to look at where you are today, and you have to look at where you could get to tomorrow. And so I have about 200 economic models of different stuff on the TSE website, because you need to know what it costs and why it costs that. And, you know, like that solar example we were doing a moment ago, yeah, you know, if I double the efficiency of a solar module, I can see that basically halves all of the cost lines. And so, you know, it's trying to figure out where the cost is going and what you can de-risk, exactly like you say, so that you can look at what the costs will be in the future. There have been cases, actually in the last year, I would say most of the things that were said to be getting cheaper have not been getting cheaper. 4 years ago, I wrote a research report about green hydrogen saying that it was $1,000 a kilowatt and it would never go lower. And lots of people wrote in and said, that's wrong, it will go lower, it will get way lower. Today, it's $3,000 a kilowatt to build a green hydrogen production facility. At CCS, I did a lot of notes looking at CCS 5 years ago. I was like $100 a TPA, CapEx costs. And I've seen projects come to the market in the last 5 years, and they're at $500 a TPA. And so I think, you know, some things have become cheaper. Generally, they're things that involve semiconductors and Chinese-made batteries. Some things have got more expensive. And, you know, the key thing is to get the data and track all of those and figure out, you know, where things are going. And that really excites me. So it's a wonderful question. Thank you. And I couldn't agree more.
Thanks, Rob. So finishing our session, Rob, it's a pleasure for us to have you here. We have PSR and Rob and Thunder said energy has a lot in common with this critical, thoughtful, data-driven thinking. So likewise, also, I think that both you and us also focus a lot on the technical part. Maybe sometimes we forget about, let's say, marketing and sales. So I open here the chance for you to bring to the audience the information about TSE subscription or services, whatever thing you would like to comment and access them and start this discussion with the audience.
Well, that's very kind. Look, my goal is, when I'm like 100 years old, I just like to live in a world with a better energy system. And I think the best way to do that is to help people get information. I am myself always learning. And when I learn something interesting, I try and share it with my distribution list. So we have a distribution list. It's completely free. If you'd like to get a little bit smarter on energy every day, I'm sure you're all very, very smart on energy, right? But just, you know, we're all learning all the time, and you'd be very welcome on the distribution list. So you can go on the website and you're very welcome to sign up. And if you ever decide that your organization would like to have access to the underlying PDF research notes or data files, then naturally I'd be delighted to help you. But the main thing is I'd like to help you help the world's energy system and make good decisions and save time. And, you know, we're all in this together to try and get it right. So thank you so much for letting me share some ideas with you today. I'm sure I haven't got everything right, but I'm still trying to get better and correct gaps in my own knowledge. And I think you guys are going to have a fantastic couple of days, just looking at the agenda and the things you have ahead of you. And I'm very jealous that I can't be there at the happy hour with you later today. So enjoy that. And thank you again. And all the best from my peaceful corner of the world in Estonia.
Thanks a lot,
Thank you very much, Rob. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Have a great day. Goodbye.
So now, following the session here, after this very interesting discussion with Rob West, so Luiz, Mario, and I would like to invite our second special guest for today. He's the general director of the system operator of Mexico, CENACE. So please join us, Mr. Ricardo Mota.
Doctor,
Dr. Ricardo Mota.
professor.
Hello.
¿Cómo estás, Ricardo?
Buenos días. Good morning.
Olá, Ricardo.
Hi, Mario. Nice meeting you.
Ricardo, vamos hablar en español o English? What do you prefer? It's the same for the audience.
My English is rusty, but it's up to you. If
Ento-
you want to speak Spanish, it's fine.
Entonces hablamos en español.
Okay.
For the people here that would like, there's some audio translator there. You can just grab at the end of the room.
De acuerdo.
Ricardo, ¿nos escuchas bien?
Sí, sí, sí.
Perfecto.
Es bien temprano, muchas gracias, Ricardo, por estar acá, participar nuevamente en nuestro encuentro de usuarios, y la idea es que tengamos un poco de charla y discusión sobre temas interesantes de todos los desafíos, los retos de la planificación y operación. Entonces, Mario, creo que podría empezar ahí haciendo algunos comentarios y preguntas a Ricardo. Ricardo también podrá hacer preguntas de vuelta a Mario, Luis y a mí.
Sí, y Ricardo, bueno, de nuevo muchas gracias. Yo sé que está muy temprano ahí en México. Como Luis había comentado, tenemos un range de fusos de 12 horas, de la gente de Estonia hasta en México. Ricardo, yo sé que tú tienes no solo mucha experiencia académica, también experiencia en otras organizaciones de México y ahora algunos años en CENACE. En su visión, ¿cuáles son los principales desafíos para un sistema de gran tamaño, complejo, con múltiples tecnologías en México? Entonces, un poco, la primera pregunta es un poco de tu visión de los desafíos y oportunidades del sistema de electricidad mexicano.
Y gracias, Mario. Como mucha gente sabe, el sistema mexicano se desarrolló a base de una serie de empresas privadas que atendían el servicio en diferentes regiones del país, y a lo largo del tiempo fueron desarrollándose interconexiones entre estos sistemas hasta que finalmente en los años 60 el sistema fue nacionalizado y empezó a desarrollarse en una forma centralizada por el gobierno mexicano. Con esos antecedentes, hace 10 años se emprende la formación de un mercado eléctrico mayorista para favorecer la entrada de generación privada, y 10 años después el gobierno federal decide nuevamente revisar la situación, el entorno del mercado, y estamos en esa etapa actualmente, ya con una nueva ley publicada en octubre del año pasado y que ha dejado en México instalado el deseo de tener un mercado híbrido, algo un poco extraño a nivel mundial, con un 54% de la energía producida por empresas estatales y 46% abierto a la privatización, y posiblemente con ese ritmo de crecimiento hacia adelante por lo menos los próximos 6 años.
Y del mix del sistema mexicano, ¿usted piensa que el principal desafío está en la mejora de la red de transmisión, en la cuestión de la generación descentralizada, como en las prioridades? Yo sé que hay muchas cosas para desarrollar, pero en su visión, el tema más prioritario.
Sí, realmente, como comentaba, la privatización afectó principalmente al sector de generación. Entonces, en 10 años teníamos proyectos por 90,000 megawatts para una punta de 50,000. Entonces, era evidente el rezago en la transmisión, y también se llegó a tener problemas por la balcanización el fenómeno conocido internacionalmente como balcanización en la red de transmisión mexicana. Entonces, estos años seguramente se está trabajando sobre el fortalecimiento de la red de transmisión y un poco la recuperación, tratando de ordenar el desarrollo del mercado eléctrico. Entonces, prácticamente están definidos los proyectos que se ejecutarán los próximos 6 años y nosotros por eso hemos hecho una economía, un avance tratando de hacer planeación a más años para poder tener una visión de hacia dónde debe de moverse este sistema que está tratando de adaptarse para alcanzar el ritmo de crecimiento de la demanda con acciones de gobierno para controlar el desajuste que se llegó después de 10 años de mercado.
Sí, perfecto. Este tema de la planeación es un tema muy cercano a nosotros. Como usted sabe, después de la primera reforma del sector eléctrico brasileño, la gente ha eliminado las agencias de planificación. Y cuando hubo la crisis energética del año 2001, yo participé muy directamente, hicimos un análisis de que esta falta de planificación había sido un tema, un error. Y como parte de las medidas de recomendaciones que fueron aprobadas, fue la creación de la empresa de planificación energética. Yo tuve mucho orgullo de hacer parte del diseño y un orgullo doble de que Luiz Barroso fue el segundo presidente de la EPE. Entonces, y el objetivo nuestro es justamente porque sí es muy importante el aporte privado, sin embargo, el mercado no resuelve todo. Es justamente la armonización de la planificación inteligente junto con las señales del mercado es que se llega al mejor resultado. Entonces, yo pienso que es un tema que para nosotros es muy cerca. Entonces, no sé si prefieres hacer una pregunta, porque no sea un monólogo, o si pasamos para Luis, ya aprovechando que
Luis y la experiencia de él.
Y la experiencia de Luis. ¿Qué prefieres, Ricardo?
Sería conveniente escuchar los comentarios de Luis.
Ok, Luis.
Está muteado, Luis.
Está en mute, Luis.
Acá se oye bien.
No, está el Marcel Marceau. Sin...
¿Me escuchan?
Ahora sí.
Ok, vale, vale. Bueno, Ricardo, un gusto tenerte aquí con nosotros. Está muy temprano, como dijo Mario y Rafael, entonces un doble gracias. Pero yo tengo un conjunto de preguntas para ti que quería más discutir de los temas de las necesidades de la planificación, empezar a mirar recursos de cada vez, una forma cada vez más locacional, con las señales, la importancia de las señales de localización. Pero voy a dejar eso para un segundo momento. Yo quería volver al tema que Mario comentó y que Rob West comentó también, que es la importancia de la red. Y hay mucha gente ahí que está en la audiencia hoy que tiene el rol de planificar los sistemas, incluso los compañeros de la empresa de planificación de Brasil. Y hoy día, si tomamos el caso brasileño, pero de otros países también, hay mucha demanda por transmisión para data centers, para hidrógeno verde, para conectar las grandes cargas. Y los plazos para conectar transmisiones son cada vez mayores, ¿no? Hoy día se construye no solo generación, pero también demanda de una forma mucho más rápida que se construye en redes, ¿no? Y Brasil hace ya algunos años invierte mucho en planificación proactiva de la transmisión, que es construir algunos tramos principales que después se pueden conectar a alguna transmisión más secundaria. Pero en tu visión, porque tú tienes ese rol, ¿qué se debe hacer más o cuáles son así las técnicas, los procesos, incluso la interfaz entre política pública y regulación que tú crees que la planificación de la transmisión debe mirar para conectar las nuevas demandas, las grandes cargas y conseguir llevar nuestros países a esa transformación energética que tanto queremos hacer?
Sí, yo creo que esta armonización entre mercado y desarrollo de suministro eléctrico debe de ser armonizado, tomando en cuenta que tanto los costos como los tiempos de gestión y construcción de los proyectos, tanto de transmisión como de generación de gran tamaño en el caso de que se requieran. Y si se llega a tener consensos en que es importante tomar en cuenta estas necesidades que son intrínsecas a la naturaleza de los proyectos de infraestructura, se gana bastante porque con los números en la mesa es más fácil tomar decisiones. Por ejemplo, no podemos arbitrariamente hablar de que vamos a hacer proyectos nucleares cuando la gestión puede tomar 15 años y el problema de desabasto está a la puerta de la esquina. Entonces, realmente sí creo en la necesidad de grupos técnicos competentes para ir marcando la orientación y la generación de datos para poder alimentar a los políticos a que tomen sus decisiones. En ese sentido, pienso que en México sucedió algo parecido a lo que mencionabas de Brasil. El mercado mostró sus deficiencias para realmente seguir el crecimiento del consumo de energía eléctrica en un país que se estaba moviendo muy rápido y finalmente estamos en una etapa de transición nuevamente, tratando de recuperar el orden a través de la ejecución de estudios de planeación centralizada. Están haciendo falta algunos recursos que se perdieron. Cuando se perdió el orden de la planeación centralizada, se desbarataron grupos que hacían pronósticos de demanda, que hacían prospección de recursos naturales, etcétera. Entonces, se requiere reconstruir esta infraestructura para tener una planeación centralizada eficiente. Pero afortunadamente hemos avanzado en ese sentido y aunque me estoy adelantando tal vez algunas preguntas, están regresando algunas facultades al gobierno federal en materia de planificación y sobre todo un paso muy importante a mi juicio que es que ahora el Ministerio de Energía tiene la responsabilidad de publicar un resultado de planeación centralizada para orientar los proyectos que deben de ser perseguidos y construidos y tratar de cerrar ese gap que hubo debido a la experiencia del mercado que fue bastante mal en México.
Mario?
Sí, Ricardo, un tema que es muy importante acá en Brasil fue la instalación de generación distribuida, por ejemplo, las placas fotovoltaicas residenciales. Pasamos en muy pocos años de menos de 200 megawatts para docenas de miles de megawatts. Y con esto, la necesidad de una coordinación de la operación, porque el operador nacional del sistema de Brasil solo maneja la red básica y esta generación distribuida es invisible. Entonces hay iniciativas, por ejemplo, la propia PSR está involucrada en un proyecto que llamamos TSO, Transmission System Operator, Distribution System Operator, para esta coordinación. Y es un tema que en muchos otros países. ¿Cómo está la situación de la generación distribuida residencial en México? ¿Es una cosa incipiente o también ya es una inquietud? Y si es una inquietud, ¿cómo el CENACE piensa que va a ser esta coordinación?
Sí, también el marco regulatorio en México se ha movido y estamos con un límite de 500 kilowatts para no requerir ninguna autorización para ser construidos. Pero realmente lo que a nosotros nos afecta más es que nuestras empresas de distribución siguen haciendo ingeniería de expansión de la distribución rezagada, o sea, con tecnologías de 20 años atrás. Entonces es común que haya limitaciones para desarrollar generación distribuida en lugares donde los circuitos de distribución están limitados. Entonces, eso tendrá que romperse en algún momento porque digamos que los aires de modernidad dados por las tecnologías de redes inteligentes no han llegado a las redes de distribución mexicanas. Entonces, entiendo que en el caso de México, nuestro centro de control igual supervisa todo hasta llegar a las terminales de las redes de distribución y todo el mundo de distribución se mueve muy lentamente. Pero ahora el propio gobierno federal ha emprendido un programa de techos solares en el norte del país, en zonas muy cálidas. Entonces, sin duda que va a haber presiones para la modernización de las redes de distribución mexicanas, sin duda, y eso va a promover el desarrollo de un crecimiento más agresivo de la generación distribuida que va a exigir una mejor coordinación entre transmisión, distribución y el control de energía.
Perfecto. Luis.
Sí, sí, Ricardo, un tema que yo te quería escuchar también tiene que ver con la importancia de las señales de localización y sobre todo para remunerar la generación, porque la gran mayoría de los mecanismos de capacidad que existen en varios mercados en el mundo, incluso en el caso brasileño y en muchos países de Latinoamérica, pero en el mundo de forma general, son mecanismos que son válidos para todo el país sin mucha señal de localización en el mecanismo. La señal de localización para la generación viene de los peajes de transmisión, ¿no? Y lo que ha pasado es que en muchos países, y yo creo que también es el caso de México, discuten cada vez más segregar esos mercados de balanza de potencia por zonas, de forma que se pueda tener una señal más fuerte que quizás los viajes de transmisión no consigan capturar y con eso remunerar más adecuadamente a la capacidad donde se la necesita, ¿no? Entonces, ese es un tema muy caliente, no solo en México, pero aquí en Brasil también, con las famosas subastas de energía que se discute mucho, mucho, hacer subastas locacionales y todo más. Y yo te quería escuchar un poco cómo ves el tema y cómo está el estado del arte del mercado de balanza de potencia hoy en México.
Sí, con los cambios legales que están ocurriendo en México se ha propuesto precisamente la creación de un mercado de balance de potencia zonal y está ahorita en discusión porque se están publicando las nuevas reglas, pero sin duda cuando México tenía un sistema centralizado de desarrollo, era muy claro lo que era la tarifa de capacidad y sin problemas se financiaba el desarrollo de nueva generación. Ahora, durante estos 10 años de mercado, el método que se aplicó en México de buscar las 100 horas críticas del año y a la generación que hubiera estado presente premiarla, resultó bastante deficiente porque no había ninguna señal que fomentara el desarrollo de capacidad en horas y zonas críticas. Entonces, en este camino es que se está buscando por lo menos descomponer por regiones las zonas de potencia, lo cual daría las señales adecuadas para promover la instalación de máquinas para punta. También estamos analizando las eventuales bondades de tener almacenamiento de energía, precisamente para rasurar puntas en lugares donde resulta muy caro y que hay posibilidades de desarrollo de generación renovable. Entonces, nuestros operadores están entusiasmados con los ejemplos que tenemos, los pocos que tenemos de generación renovable con baterías y que permiten tener un mejor desempeño en las puntas. Pero regresando al tema de tener un justo precio para la capacidad, pienso que estamos en ese camino y con una propuesta ya que está siendo procesada para tenemos un mucho mejor desempeño regionalizando las zonas de escasez de potencia.
Ricardo, y una consulta sobre tu visión de las expectativas de crecimiento de la demanda en México por diferentes actividades, de turismo, industria, nearshoring. ¿Cómo está tu visión de cuáles van a ser los principales actores en este proceso de crecimiento y cómo se ubicaría geográficamente en México? Porque dependiendo cómo se distribuye esta demanda, también se requiere no solo más generación, pero como ya hablamos, transmisión.
Sí, gracias por la pregunta, Rafa. Tenemos ubicadas claramente las zonas en que hemos tenido una mayor presión de crecimiento por el fenómeno del nearshoring después de la época de la pandemia. Prácticamente toda la franja fronteriza de México, así como las zonas industriales de Monterrey, del centro de México y del occidente. Prácticamente en todo lo que es el sistema interconectado, la carga está creciendo a un ritmo de 3 o 4% anual y tenemos un par de zonas que ha crecido muy por encima del promedio nacional, que es la península de Baja California, sobre todo en su parte sur, y la península de Yucatán, con el crecimiento rapidísimo del turismo, ahora incrementado por los proyectos del gobierno federal que interconectó con trenes el sureste de México y está fomentando el desarrollo de nuevos polos industriales en el sureste de México. Entonces, sí existe coordinación para promover el desarrollo y esto le ha puesto presión a las necesidades de crecimiento de la oferta eléctrica. Comentaba yo las dos penínsulas, las zonas fronterizas y que son tradicionalmente industriales y es el reto que tiene el gobierno mexicano de mantener el crecimiento por el cual la reforma eléctrica que promovieron tiene prácticamente el interés de mantener la garantía de suministro a través de la capacidad controlada por empresas del Estado y el crecimiento lo está tomando principalmente con participación privada.
Gracias.
Una pregunta, Ricardo, con respecto a la fuente hidroeléctrica. Yo sé que la participación hidroeléctrica en México es más pequeña que, por ejemplo, en la mayoría de los países de Sudamérica. Sin embargo, pienso que todavía existe un potencial que puede ser significativo. ¿Existen planes de hacer una evaluación del papel de las plantas hidroeléctricas en el mix del sistema mexicano para ver si es económico? ¿Cómo usted ve la cuestión hidroeléctrica?
El nuevo gobierno mexicano está muy interesado en el desarrollo de energía renovable de toda índole. Entonces, la Comisión Federal de Electricidad tiene identificados los proyectos grandes que todavía se pueden desarrollar y hay interés, pero la presión de crecimiento de otras tecnologías renovables también es más alta porque es más barato y más rápido. Sin embargo, se están promoviendo los proyectos que tiene identificados la Comisión Federal, tanto nuevos proyectos de generación, por ejemplo, en el río Sumacinta, que está en la frontera con Guatemala, como también el desarrollo de potencial de centrales antiguas que pueden ser habilitadas como plantas de rebombeo, hablando de esta necesidad de almacenamiento que aparece por el desarrollo de energía renovable, pero de naturaleza intermitente. Entonces yo creo que sí hay un interés mayor de potenciar y desarrollar todas estas posibilidades, dado que, como es sabido, actualmente estamos dependiendo de la importación de gas norteamericano.
Perfeito.
Mário, quizá também, para dar um pouco de tempo a Ricardo, tu puedes também dar tu visão de como é o tema de Latinoamérica e o rol de México en este desarrollo de tecnologías, para que depois Ricardo também comente.
Sí, o tal vez preguntas de la audiencia también.
Depois.
Sí. Sí, hemos, como tú sabes, Ricardo, nosotros trabajamos con la mayoría de los países de América del Sur, América Central y también México. Y
incluso ustedes se conocieron
sí,
en un estudio, ¿verdad?
Sí, pienso que la primera vez que nos conocimos fue en el famoso PACEICA, ¿no?
Sí.
Que el primer proyecto de interconexión de Centroamérica.
Creo que la mayoría de las personas de acá no eran ni nacidos.
No, mira.
No, mayoría no.
Mira,
pero
no, yo no soy viejo, yo soy vintage, ¿ok? Y también una cosa que yo digo es lo siguiente. Ustedes solo son jóvenes una vez, pero podemos ser inmaturos para siempre. Esa es la otra. Entonces, Rob West, que hizo la otra presentación, en uno de sus artículos dijo una cosa que me gustó mucho, que es, con el hecho que Estados Unidos está ahora, no tiene más inquietudes con respecto a los costos de reglamentaciones ambientales y va a ser todo drill, baby drill. Y como Rob West ha comentado, la energía, gas en Estados Unidos es muy barata. Esto ha creado un reto para la industria de otros países. Esto es, el presidente Trump en su discurso de inauguración dijo, bueno, acá tendremos energía muy barata, vamos a tener impuestos muy bajos, entonces vengan para acá. Este es el famoso carrots. Y el stick es, si ustedes no vienen para acá para poner las industrias en Estados Unidos, vamos a poner las famosas tarifas y todo. Y Rob hizo un análisis diciendo lo siguiente, que el hecho que Estados Unidos va a tener energía muy barata, pone un reto, por ejemplo, para Europa, que ni tiene energía barata y además tiene los sobrecostos asociados a los incentivos a descarbonización. Sin embargo, en nuestra visión, la región de Sudamérica, Centroamérica, incluyendo México, tiene en la otra dirección. Es una región donde naturalmente las renovables son muy baratas. Esto es, cuando, por ejemplo, nosotros hacemos los estudios de expansión y ponemos todos de candidatos, hicimos hace un tiempo un estudio donde multiplicamos por 3 la demanda de Brasil y pusimos todos como candidatos y lo que salía como la expansión óptima es una cantidad muy grande de generación renovable, porque tenemos bastantes recursos también de almacenamiento y todo esto. Entonces, tenemos una visión de que vamos a tener 2 superpotencias energéticas, 2 tipos de superpotencias energéticas en el mundo. La gente que tiene gas muy barato, que es Estados Unidos, Qatar, Argentina, y la gente que tiene las renovables muy baratas, donde pensamos que a América del Sur, América Central y quizás México también. Y también hay mucha complementariedad entre las regiones. Hace tiempo nosotros hicimos, Silvio Binato, que está acá, hizo muchos estudios, por ejemplo, de la CIER, del Comité de Integración, pero yo veo una oportunidad de renacimiento de estos estudios de integración. Un ejemplo es Argentina. Argentina con el shale gas, que es fantástico y tiene una cantidad esencialmente infinita. Tiene la oportunidad de exportación por la derecha, tiene una otra oportunidad de exportación a través de Chile, pero tiene una oportunidad de exportación para Brasil. Brasil no tiene muchos recursos de gas. Y una cosa que, por ejemplo, en los análisis que hacemos es que es posible que se tenga precio de gas que no está conectado al precio internacional, porque es una cosa muy regional. Entonces vemos una especie de revitalización de que el pasado, por ejemplo, el mercado andino está se organizando de una manera muy interesante y quizás vamos a tener la conexión de Colombia con Panamá y también las conexiones con de Guatemala con México. Entonces, un poco la idea, yo pienso que ahora existen mucho más oportunidades de una interconexiones y una integración energética, no por razones políticas, simplemente porque la realidad económica está en esta dirección. Y haciendo un poco de chiste, nosotros de PSR trabajamos mucho con Canadá y con el Pacific Northwest. Y yo hago para nuestros amigos norteamericanos diciendo, bueno, ahora vamos a hacer todo el dominio de California y creamos the Greater Latin America, ¿no? que va hasta Canadá en el sentido. Pero volviendo a este tema, yo he trabajado en el pasado en discusiones un poco de estrategias energéticas. ¿Cómo tú ves la cuestión de la ventaja de una integración energética más profunda de México hasta Patagonia? Parece un sueño, parece una cosa que podría ser interesante. ¿Cómo es tu visión?
Sí. Ahora pienso que la matriz energética mexicana tiene que adecuarse, porque comentaba yo hace unos momentos que la situación actual de 60% del gas que utilizamos para producir
Fazer mais propaganda do CENACE. É engraçado que... Será que é daqui? Porque tanto o Luiz quanto...
Ahí viene, ahí ya
Sí.
está, ya
Ahora
está.
sí, ahora sí.
Sí, ahora.
regresamos.
Sí, sí.
Sí. Perdón, Mario, empezamos. Decía yo que la situación actual de estar importando 60% del gas necesario reconocida por el gobierno mexicano. Entonces, en algún momento se ha pensado inclusive regresar a la posibilidad de desarrollar algún proyecto nuclear, dada la buena experiencia que ha tenido el proyecto nuclear mexicano de Laguna Verde, pero siendo realistas, realmente la parte importante es regresar al desarrollo de los recursos naturales con los que contamos. Yo creo que esta revisión que se hizo de lo que significó el mercado los últimos 10 años ha orientado al gobierno federal a volverse a preocupar por la sostenibilidad del mercado mexicano, y en ese sentido yo creo que las oportunidades de fortalecer la interconexión hacia el sur vuelven a reaparecer como siempre fue pensado. Actualmente hay mucho interés en fortalecer la interconexión con Centroamérica. Obviamente hay recursos que pueden ser compartidos entre las dos regiones, y digamos que la parte de la conexión con el sur pues está ahí esperando la interconexión Panamá-Colombia para empezar a aumentar los posibles intercambios. Pero sin duda que en este momento resulta más importante la sostenibilidad del desarrollo eléctrico que el desarrollo del mercado per se, que creo que está siendo revisado en varios lugares.
Perfecto.
Luiz?
Sí, Ricardo, una pregunta que creo que será de mucho interés para la gente, la audiencia aquí, es sobre cuáles serían, así, a ver, la naturaleza se ha vuelto loca porque los fenómenos climáticos están cada vez más complicados, complejos, y cada vez más eso exige mucho de las herramientas computacionales para planificación y operación. Y hay las dos palabritas que siempre han estado muy de moda, que la primera es incertidumbre, la segunda que ha estado más de moda aún, que se llama resiliencia. Entonces yo te quería escuchar un poco cómo tú ves la importancia, la forma y las limitaciones también, por supuesto, de considerarse cada vez más incertidumbre y hacer un modelaje de la resiliencia de los sistemas eléctricos contra, sobre todo, los efectos adversos del cambio climático, pero contra otras cosas también, ¿no? Que resiliencia es un concepto muy amplio.
Sí, el caso de la incertidumbre, yo creo que es importante en el caso de nosotros, porque cómo construyes un modelo matemático para tomar en cuenta lo que esté pensando el presidente de Estados Unidos de Norteamérica, que ya hace un año, hace 2 años tuvimos el tema de que el gobernador de Texas quería privilegiar el consumo de gas producido en Texas exclusivamente para Texas. Entonces, tenemos problemas de este tipo de incertidumbres, no solo las meteorológicas, sino también las políticas. Entonces, yo creo, y no es para hacerle propaganda a PSR, pero yo creo que precisamente el tener herramientas eficientes computacionales para poder evaluar estos escenarios permite en un momento dado poder mitigar los problemas de incertidumbres. Y la parte de resiliencia ya tiene que ver con la posibilidad de mejor ingeniería y recursos para tener un sistema resiliente ante ciertos fenómenos, como siempre ha sido la tradición en el manejo de redes eléctricas, de tratar de identificar los fenómenos factibles para tener las medidas de mitigación ante una posible ocurrencia, ¿no? Como ejemplo, el año pasado tuvimos una onda de calor un mes antes de lo pronosticado que nos obligó a hacer algunas restricciones de carga. Y este año, en las mismas fechas, tuvimos un frente frío que nos mantuvo tranquilos. Entonces, en realidad, hay la exigencia de una mejor predicción, por ejemplo, de estas variables para poder hacer un uso más eficiente de los recursos con los que contamos.
Ricardo, muchas gracias. Y Rafa y Mario, si me permiten, yo quería hacer un seguimiento de la pregunta que hice a Ricardo, porque tengo una pregunta para ustedes dos que están ahí en el escenario, para Mario y Raphael Chabar, que es el siguiente. Ahí en la audiencia está también la profesora Alexandra Street, que ha trabajado mucho en la Universidad Católica de Río y con nosotros también con conceptos de optimización robusta, ¿sí? Para justamente intentar representar más esos efectos extremos y los efectos que son muchas veces difíciles de estar representados por una distribución de probabilidad. Entonces yo quería
Mucha incertidumbre en la transmisión.
No, eso es confiabilidad. Eso no es...
Ahí está.
Sí.
Rafa, Chabar,
tú
ustedes
estabas
cortaron.
hablando, Luis, de que quería preguntar.
Pero ustedes cortaron de propósito el concepto de la optimización robusta para representar esos efectos más difíciles de capturarse a través de distribución de probabilidad y considerando que tenemos ahí a Alexander Street, un investigador, un profesor de la Universidad Católica de Río que ha trabajado mucho en esos temas. Entonces, Mario, también los
Quer que eu fale?
Sí, y vamos a tener ahí otras sesiones también hablando de varios temas de investigación,
Sí.
¿cierto, Mario? Sobre
Sí.
prognósticos de diferentes temas climáticos. Entonces,
Sí,
quizá-
sí, mañana tenemos una sesión. Sí, Luis, entonces no te vamos a cortar de nuevo, queremos contestar la pregunta. Entonces, me gustaría de hablar un poco sobre este tema, porque como ustedes saben, el enfoque natural, si nosotros conocemos la distribución de probabilidad, es la optimización estocástica. Esto es, queremos, por ejemplo, determinar la política operativa o hacer la planificación que minimice el promedio de los costos operativos o hasta una combinación, por ejemplo, de lambda, valor esperado, más un lambda CEVAR. Esto es, podemos minimizar uma métrica que é o valor esperado, ou podemos minimizar uma métrica de valor esperado ajustado a risco. Pero como Luiz ha mencionado, sempre bajo el supuesto de que conhecemos a distribuição da probabilidade. Quando hablamos de eventos extremos, nós temos um desafio, é um dos temas que vai ser parte da apresentação amanhã, que é o problema del tail, de la cola. Isto é, se eu tenho uma distribuição da probabilidade, mas é desconhecida, e eu tenho poucas observações de eventos extremos. Então, como a Taleb sempre ha mencionado em seu livro The Black Swan, o problema é que se hacemos uma estimativa equivocada de la cola de la distribuição de probabilidade, onde ocorrem os eventos extremos, podemos fazer erros muito grandes. Isto é, pensamos que um determinado evento tem probabilidade 1 sobre 1000, sin embargo, o evento tem probabilidade 1 sobre 100. Este tema, então, de eventos extremos, ha criado um reto já complexo. Este reto complexo é agora mais complexo por el hecho de los cambios climáticos. Isto é, o efeito real do cambio climático é cambiar a distribuição da probabilidade. Então, de uma maneira general, os cambios climáticos hacen mais prováveis os eventos extremos de sequía e até mais os eventos extremos de de floods. E basicamente, quando, por exemplo, hacemos os estudos de atribuição, temos, por exemplo, uma sequia muito severa e queremos saber se esta está associada a um câmbio climático. Basicamente, comparamos duas distribuições de probabilidade. Distribuição de probabilidade que sairia de 90 anos da história e uma nova distribuição de probabilidade. Então, uma maneira de manejar isto é, como Luiz havia mencionado, através do conceito de otimização robusta. O problema do conceito de otimização robusta é qual é o conjunto de eventos que vamos representar. Porque, por exemplo, se eu tomo a decisão que é a melhor para o pior caso de 100 cenários, pero poderia ser o pior caso de 1000 cenários, ou poderia ser o pior caso de 10.000 cenários. Então, a distribuição robusta, por um lado, ha avançado, por el hecho que não tenho que saber a probabilidade dos cenários. Por outro lado, também temos o problema que, se eu tenho 100 milhões de cenários, estou tomando uma decisão com respeito a alguma coisa que também não é plausível. Então, existe um tema que é onde nós temos trabalhado bastante, que é onde está o sweet spot entre a optimização estocástica e a optimização robusta. E em nossa visão, este sweet spot está em el conceito de minimizar o máximo arrependimento. De uma maneira muito sencilla, imagine que eu tenho 3 oráculos. Um oráculo me diz que a distribuição de probabilidade é P1, P2, P3. O outro oráculo me diz que a distribuição de probabilidade é P'1, P'2, P'3. O outro oráculo me diz que a distribuição de probabilidade é P2'1, P2'2, P2'3. Como eu pongo juntas esses pronósticos dos oráculos? Y es interesante que la respuesta no es el promedio, no es una combinación de los oráculos, es lo siguiente. Usted toma la decisión, hace el estudio, imaginando que el oráculo 1 está cierto. Y después hace la siguiente pregunta. Oh, Dios mío, el oráculo, en la realidad es el oráculo 2 que está cierto. Entonces, calculamos cuál es el costo adicional para el sistema si yo planeé para el oráculo 1, sin embargo, ocurre el oráculo 2. Esta diferencia se llama arrepentimiento. Hacemos lo mismo, yo hice la planificación para el oráculo 1, pero ocurre el oráculo 3. Entonces yo tengo el arrepentimiento 2.1, arrepentimiento 3.1. Y tengo el máximo arrepentimiento. Entonces, asociado a acreditar en el oráculo 1, tengo el máximo arrepentimiento. Hago el mismo para el oráculo 2. Acredito en el oráculo 2, tengo el arrepentimiento 1.2 y tengo el arrepentimiento 3.2, máximo arrepentimiento. Y hago el mismo para el oráculo 3. Entonces, arrepentimiento 1.3, arrepentimiento 2.3, máximo arrepentimiento. Entonces, la idea es seleccionar la opción que minimice el máximo arrepentimiento. Esto es, yo no pongo probabilidades, yo pongo plausibilidades en este efecto y trabajo en esta dirección. Nosotros estamos trabajando mucho con este concepto con respecto a los modelos climáticos. Todo el mundo habla, bueno, voy a hacer una simulación climática. Perfecto. ¿Cuántos modelos climáticos existen? 60 modelos climáticos. Entonces, ¿cuál modelo climático yo escojo? Lo que la gente hace es tomar los 60 modelos climáticos, hacer un backcasting y escoger el modelo que tiene el menor error de backcasting. Pero eso no está correcto. ¿Por qué? Puede ser que el modelo 30 tenga un error de backcasting de 3%, pero puede ser que el modelo 46 tenga un error de 3,1%, pero los resultados son completamente distintos. Entonces, el trabajo que estamos haciendo con el INPE, el Instituto de Clima de Pesquisas Espaciales de Brasil, que son de clima, con la Agencia Nacional del Agua, PSR, que es financiado por el RISE alemán para la EPE, estamos poniendo este proceso, que es, de los 60 modelos, echamos fuera los implausibles, esto es que con el backcasting los resultados son horribles. Y nos quedamos con quizás 10 modelos que son plausibles. Para estos modelos que son plausibles, cada uno de los modelos es un oráculo. Y son los modelos de circulación atmosférica y todo oficiales que el IPCC usa. Entonces aplicamos el minimizar el máximo arrepentimiento. En esta altura, Luis ya está arrepentido de hacer la pregunta, porque mi lado nerds entró en la situación. Entonces, mi visión, el minimizar máximo arrepentimiento es una especie del sweet spot que toma las mejores características de la optimización estocástica y las mejores características de la optimización robusta. Es un tema que vamos a hablar de nuevo en martes, la próxima semana. Mañana, disculpe.
Tenemos ahora unos 20 minutos más en la sesión. Quizá podríamos empezar a tomar preguntas de la audiencia y organizar un poco esto. Mientras ahí ustedes van pensando las preguntas a doctor Ricardo, Mario, Luis, mi persona. Pero para el doctor Ricardo, aprovechando el tema de los retos y de los cambios de tipos de optimización, toda la metodología, etc. Ahí un poco escuchar la visión del doctor y del CENACE en términos de inversión en capacitación al equipo del CENACE, en planificación, operación, en herramientas. O sea, ¿cuál es tu visión sobre esto y cómo esto ha cambiado o va a cambiar a lo largo del tiempo? Porque quizá la mejor forma de prepararse para estos cambios hay un conjunto de herramientas, pero hay que tener el equipo listo y preparado para manejarlas, para tener un pensamiento crítico sobre los problemas porque uno no va a poder anticipar lo que va a pasar.
Comento, Rafa.
Gracias.
Sí, comentaba yo que hubo interés en México en promover el desarrollo del mercado eléctrico y parte de este fomento terminó con la planeación centralizada que hacía la Comisión Federal de Electricidad de México. Y al paso de 10 años el escenario no era muy agradable. Comentábamos que hubo un crecimiento explosivo de la oferta de generación, sobre todo en parques de generación renovable intermitente. El trabajo que se hizo para agregar generación a través de subastas fueron exitosos por las condiciones ofrecidas y eso fue lo que generó ese exceso de oferta de energía en México. Sin embargo, la red no se movió a la misma velocidad y adicionalmente se fueron abandonando las buenas prácticas de planeación centralizada. Entonces, a la vuelta de 10 años, nos encontramos con que la planeación que se hacía era un poco tratando de perseguir el crecimiento de la demanda. Adicionalmente, también cambió la forma del consumo en México con una punta vespertina por el calor en el verano y también con problemas por los mantenimientos al parque generador en el invierno, que nos produjeron también problemas de confiabilidad en el invierno, de modo que tuvimos dos estaciones en el año para planificar. Y decía yo que lamentablemente ante la pérdida de habilidades para planificar a largo plazo, realmente la planificación que se hacía de largo plazo fue sustituida por una planificación a mediano plazo que solamente veía un año hacia adelante prácticamente. De manera que cuando se decide retomar las buenas prácticas de planificación eléctrica, nos encontramos con esta ausencia de gente especialista en el trabajo de planeación. Ahí fue donde tuvimos que recurrir a la ayuda con PSR para el desarrollo de metodologías y modelos, y con un gran éxito porque los resultados de este esfuerzo empezaron a emerger justamente en época de campañas electorales, y los materiales que fueron producidos por este grupo han sido utilizados para tratar de racionalizar el trabajo de este gobierno, y ya están tomándose en cuenta los resultados que se han obtenido a través de este trabajo, que finalmente nos ha permitido completar la cadena de procedimientos para tener planificación desde un día en adelanto hasta 30 años hacia el futuro. Entonces estamos haciendo anualmente la planificación a 30 años de generación y transmisión entre regiones, así como la planeación detallada de la expansión de transmisión a 15 años. El modelo de 30 años usa una red equivalente de 100 barras aproximadamente. La planeación detallada a 15 años tiene un modelo de red de 10,000 nodos o más para ver en detalle diferentes regiones del país, y En lo que es la planeación operativa, por el tamaño de los embalses mexicanos, se está haciendo un trabajo a 5 años de planeación de mediano plazo. Y toda esta información está coordinada de manera que de la planeación de mediano plazo se obtienen las cuotas de producción para los embalses grandes y poder hacer la planeación de corto plazo. De manera que estamos cómodos con el trabajo que se ha venido haciendo de planeación y, por supuesto, las experiencias de tener los resultados en forma oportuna y han sido muy positivos con estos trabajos. Hace falta un fortalecimiento de todas las actividades preparatorias de la ejecución de estos modelos. Ya comentaba yo al inicio de la jornada del día de hoy, temas como la prospección de recursos energéticos, como la el correcto pronóstico de demanda para los diferentes escenarios de tiempo. Por poner un par de ejemplos, por supuesto, la incorporación de tecnologías de almacenamiento, de centrales de rebombeo, de equipo electrónico de potencia para controlar flujos de potencia en redes o posponer obras, etcétera. Son los retos que hay hacia adelante para ir enriqueciendo el núcleo de trabajo que ya está integrado gracias a la colaboración con nuestros amigos de PSR. Y tenemos un grupo solvente, unas 40 gentes que están ya trabajando en el tema de planificación a mediano y largo plazo.
Perfecto. Gracias, doctor. Y ahí un poco escuchar las preguntas. Tenemos acá Josué. Después Henry.
Buenos días a todos. Gracias a cada uno por su presentación, por su comentario. Y tengo una pregunta para Ricardo Mota, ¿cierto? Es cuando hacen ellos planificación 20, 30 años, ¿cómo hacen convivir el sector público? ¿Cómo el gobierno puede ser juez y parte al traer inversiones privadas? Dijo que estaba en un 54% la parte del Estado. Si hay una expansión del privado, ¿cómo equilibran? ¿Están solamente en generación, en alguna tecnología hidrotérmico, renovable, también en transmisión? ¿Cómo hacen convivir esas dos? ¿Está dentro de la optimización metido esa decisión?
La verdad es que la ley cambió a partir de octubre del año pasado y entonces ahora ya el gobierno mexicano tiene la facultad de promover la participación privada y por eso se recuperó esta actividad de planificación, porque adicionalmente en el cambio de ley que hubo en octubre, la planificación de expansión del sistema es una planificación vinculatoria, es decir, que el gobierno federal tiene la obligación de promover la construcción de los proyectos que se proponen y la modalidad de inversión en estos proyectos es la que tiene que cumplir con las cuotas que estamos comentando. Obviamente un año atrás, si hubiera sido algo fuera de la ley, el pretender hacer una planeación centralizada de esta manera, pero la ley cambió en México en octubre. Ya comentábamos de los desajustes que se produjeron por la operación del mercado durante 10 años. Entonces se está tratando de corregir y adaptar nuevamente la red de transmisión al desarrollo de generación para poder satisfacer el crecimiento de la demanda.
Gracias, doctor. Gracias, José, por la pregunta. Henry.
Sí, muchas gracias a todos por este panel.
Henry de Colombia, de XM.
De XM Colombia, sí, del CND. Esta pregunta para PSR, para Mario. Mario, a diferencia de México, Colombia es hidrodependiente, ¿cierto? Y en los últimos años, pues nosotros hemos podido sortear los diferentes niños con el uso de nuestro embalse, que tiene una regulación relativamente corta y con la generación térmica.
Interesantes las preguntas.
Pero el futuro nuestro, en los próximos 10 años, no hay expansión de convencionales, viene todo renovable y especialmente solar. En nuestros estudios energéticos operativos vemos que hay situaciones donde nuestros embalses llegan a los mínimos con una alta dependencia de las variables primarias, solar, eólica. Nos preocupa mucho porque hemos confiado mucho en el almacenamiento como esa batería natural que ha sido nuestro sistema y no sabemos cómo dar unas señales correctas que con este cambio climático nos puedan poner en esa vulnerabilidad en esos momentos. Entonces quisiéramos saber qué recomendaciones desde el punto de vista de los estudios, de las señales, pudiéramos dar para que no entremos en ese riesgo y siga siendo el embalse como un seguro que nos brinde confiabilidad en esos momentos.
Perfecto. Entonces, lo que se hace en general es utilizar el histórico de caudales para de ahí extraer, por ejemplo, los parámetros del modelo estocástico. Pero esta metodología tiene un supuesto de que el histórico de caudales es representativo de lo que va a pasar en el futuro. Y como usted mencionó, el desafío nuestro es que el histórico de caudales ya no representa cómo va a ser el futuro debido a los cambios climáticos. Entonces, ¿cómo se puede hacer? Y una primera manera es empezar a trabajar no con el histórico de caudales, sino con un conjunto de escenarios para el futuro. Entonces, por ejemplo, imagine que de alguna manera mágica nosotros tengamos 1.200 escenarios de caudales de ahora hasta los próximos 30 años. Entonces, ¿sería posible hacer la planificación con estos escenarios? La respuesta es sí, porque, por ejemplo, en el caso del SDDP, básicamente lo que hacemos, esto equivalería a tenemos las series forwards del SDP, las 1.200 series forwards, si la diferencia es que nosotros estaríamos ajustando los parámetros del modelo PAR-P de manera no estacionaria, esto es, tomamos las 1.200 escenarios de junio de 2025, estimamos el PAR-P. Los 1.200 escenarios de julio de 2025, estimamos el PAR-P y así por adelante, y no tendría problemas en este aspecto. Una otra modificación es que estos escenarios, y yo voy a hablar en un minuto cómo se generan esos escenarios, que son afectados por cambios climáticos, ellos tienden a tener más extremos, esto es, tener más variabilidad do que tiene el histórico. Entonces, una cosa que estamos investigando y haciendo pruebas es hacer lo que llamamos el modelo lineal por partes. Esto es, hacemos cluster de los escenarios bajos, medios y altos, hacemos una matriz de transición a cada año y con esto es como si tuviéramos un PAR-P para los escenarios bajos, un PAR-P para el escenario promedio, un PAR-P para los escenarios altos, y esto nos da una adherencia más grande. Ahora, ¿cómo generar estos escenarios? Entonces, es un tema que vamos a hablar mañana. Lo que hacemos es, tenemos el modelo PSR-CAST. El modelo PSR-CAST utiliza los modelos de circulación atmosférica, donde se tiene la generación integrada de irradiación solar, humedad, lluvia, viento, y de ahí y tenemos el Ensemble Forecast. Pasamos por un modelo de AI. Este modelo de AI hace una primera transformación donde extrae las características espaciales, una segunda transformación donde extrae las características temporales, una tercera transformación donde extrae la información de la distribución de probabilidad y llegamos en básicamente o Variation Autoencoder en una situación donde podemos hacer sorteos, generar nuevas secuencias y aplicamos a generalidade na direção contrária e conseguimos esses cenários. Este esquema do PSR-Cast, ele permite compatibilizar as informações de curto prazo, isso é, a cada 6 horas, as organizações internacionais fazem estes pronósticos para os próximos 15 dias, as informações de mediano prazo, a cada 6 meses se tem uma atualização, e as informações de largo prazo. Então, com isso, se pode ter cenários compatíveis, por exemplo, para os próximos 10 anos. Um outro desafio é a questão que havíamos recém comentado de que o hecho de que a temperatura de los anos 23, 24 e 25 está muito mais alta do que diziam os modelos. Então, o que passa? Se eu não tomo isto explicitamente em conta, o que passa é, se está ultra caliente hoje, por supuesto, nos próximos 15 dias vamos a ter cenários que são compatíveis com estar caliente, pero temos return to the mean. Então, isto não é uma coisa que é estrutural. Então, para fazer a coisa estrutural, nós temos que modificar esta generação de cenários para enfatizar de que, de hecho, o que se pensava que ia ocorrer em 20 anos, que é exceder 1,5 graus, já excedemos 1,5 graus, estamos em 1,6, e então há outro ajuste que se pode fazer, que é justamente com a cadena de Markov que eu havia mencionado. Então, para representar o hecho de que a situação de câmbio climático é mais, já chegou, o que hacemos é ajustes em estes parâmetros do câmbio climático. Então, em resumo, generação de miles de cenários e depois o ajuste. Com isto se tem o conjunto integrado de cenários que nós acreditamos que é mais representativo. E o último, já falei novamente demasiado, e amanhã podemos continuar com isto, é o critério de escolher se acreditamos em 1,5 graus, acreditamos em 2 graus, que é o critério de mínimo máximo arrependimento. Então, é todo um novo conjunto de metodologias que pensamos que é fundamental para justamente enfrentar estes novos retos.
Gracias, Mario. Por un tema de tiempo, son 11:30, tenemos ya planificado el coffee break. Entonces, voy a agradecer la presencia del doctor Mota, y ya está empezando el día, muchos temas a solucionar ahí en México. Mario, si quieres também comentar, e Luiz.
Não, só agradecer a Ricardo. Ricardo, muito especial a oportunidade de falar contigo e aprender com vocês, e a experiência de CENACE é fundamental para todos nós. E muitíssimas graças por tua presença e por tus insights e tus comentários.
Luiz.
Gracias.
De mi parte, quería nada más agradecer también a ustedes, felicitar a todos de PSR por la organización del evento. Para Henry, que tú preguntaras bastante a la gente de PSR que ha pasado en muchos sistemas que tienen el mismo tema que tú has traído. Y lo que la gente está haciendo en la práctica es operar los embalses, intentar operar los embalses de las hidros lo más alto posible. Entonces hay curvas de aversión a riesgo, niveles meta, cosas así. Y el equipo de PSR que está por ahí te podrá explicar bastante cómo hemos visto eso en otros países. Y a todos que están, que tengan una buena semana, ojo con las fiestas, que disfruten bien todo el aprendizaje. Y vale, gracias.
Doctor Mota, muchas gracias. Un gusto tenerte acá con nosotros.
Muchas gracias.
Y ahora el coffee break. Lucas.
Ricardo, un abrazo. Gusto verte.
Igual, Luis.
Y bueno, ahora aprovecharemos el coffee break. Hicimos la impresión del artículo del SDP de Mario en Mathematical Programming. y va a estar disponible ahí para ustedes que quieran llevarlo. Yo mismo voy a recoger uno, voy a pedir que Mario lo firme. Es una gran oportunidad ahí de tener este regalo tan especial con la presencia de Mario en el evento. Gracias.